like to begin with our redevelopment meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody and approve the minutes of December 14th, 2021, of the redevelopment meeting, and January 11th, 2022. Is there any comments or anything to add to those?
No, Denise did a good job.
Morgan City Redevelopment Agency meeting December 14th, 2021. And the minutes of the Morgan City Redevelopment Agency meeting on January 11th.
And I'll second that.
Tony has a motion to approve the minutes of the Morgan City Redevelopment Agency meeting December 14th, 2021, and also the minutes of the Morgan City Redevelopment Agency meeting of January 11th. Jeffrey has a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous.
So you've still got 10 minutes.
With that,
I want to-
Have you been on, are you going over to this county school district? Are you on their agenda anytime soon to talk about the restructuring? Well,
Oh, no, so I'm
restructuring that, we're not gonna have to?
waiting until after the legislative session.
Okay.
So there's some bills that could disrupt our ability to even do incentives. I've been pushing back on it. I've talked to the
Lance.
governor's office, how that would impact us. I gave them an example of how the hotel was a major incentive that would have not been allowed. And so the bill sponsor is moving forward with it regardless of the league, but they might exempt fourth class. And right now, fifth and sixth are exempt.
I think I heard that just this afternoon, I don't know the details, but it didn't make it out of the committee in the House.
So they didn't.
Yeah, so I don't know what
Enough
that
people have
means.
heard about it.
Yeah, if it could come up again, I'm not sure how that works.
Well, they can do a substitute, so they could pull it.
There may be an
Substitute
amendment.
motion.
Yeah, an amendment to it.
Yeah,
So
so
still not a bad sign. We
What
gotta-
constitutes a fourth class city? What population ties? Are
um,
we now fourth class?
well, because the counties, we're a city in the fourth class county, and so the county has like 15,000 or 20,000, but the definition for a city is 10,000 or less. So you can be a fifth class or a third class county and or a third class city in a fourth class county, the way that the two numbers match up. One doesn't trump the other, you know what I'm saying?
So we're a fourth class because the county
The
is
count, yeah, and but we don't,
hit the 10,000.
oh, yeah. I can't remember the exact population. I just know that we're fourth class city.
Because of the county population.
Yeah, both,
State code, you want the population?
yeah.
For a fourth class city is 10,000 or more, but less than 30,000. A fifth class is 1,000 or more, but less than 10,000. And then anything under 1,000 is a town.
Yeah, and the way the bill was structured is it was based on your county. So they're just doing it like county by county, not recognizing the
Individual cities.
cities, but it had a whole bunch of issues in it. So maybe that's why it didn't.
Which
Ironing
one-
out some of it, or
Which one is it, Dave? What's the bill?
151
Oh, that's right.
HB.
HB
House Bill
151.
151.
Yeah.
You know, Gary will probably have more on it if he shows up. We've seen tonight.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that
Yeah.
there's enough pushback because
Yeah.
it undermines all of the economic development activities and RDAs and,
Well, essentially killing RDA, wouldn't it?
yeah, mostly. And there's other ones too, like 262 or 282, the
It was 262.
262 there, where it takes away the tax incentive to restore a historic building. They're all over the place. There's tons of things this year where it's just, you know, a big push for housing everywhere. But really the issue is just not leaving land use decisions up to local governments.
Yeah.
That's the big issue.
burden right there.
Did I hear Gary say the other day that there's talk of eliminating a single family residence?
Yeah, there's, so that's already been done in California and a couple of places where there's no such thing as a single family zone. You gotta just allow multifamily everywhere. So, there's another one where they're looking at creating zones controlled by the state. So there's a push to have the state control the land around transit, like the stations, the Farmington Station and the,
Controlled via zoning.
yeah, well, MIDA, have you ever heard of MIDA? So MIDA is on the other side of Hill Air Force Base, and it's state-owned property that functions like a city. So they don't have a city government or anything. It's a state. And
It's on the base
speaking of,
itself.
yeah, and speaking of, that's where they did commercial developments.
Right.
That's, you know, off of 600, the exit that goes to like Sunset, but it's like the main entrance to Hill Air Force Base off of I-15.
Yeah, one down. from
Yeah, and you saw
museum.
the,
A lot of commercial.
yeah, there's a big commercial district. That's all state-owned. It's like a little state-run development.
Mhm.
And inland port. So there's just a lot of tug of wars, but anyway, just because it's not necessarily urgent, if we change that formula, it's probably not going to affect anything till the next year's taxes come through anyway. You know, at the end of next year. So I just decided to wait and see what
See what you can do.
yeah, just make sure it's appropriate, and then I'll approach them. There'll probably be an article in the newspaper from the Vallis. You know how we approved the RDA, because I got calls just saying like, you're out of money, are you never gonna do it again? And, you know, the newspaper was given some questions, and so there might be an article about the Vallis. I just said, we're just out of funds until, you know, until we have more funds, so just go back and see if we redo that or not, but you know, there's a couple projects in the works, but we'll see how that goes. But I think as far as redevelopment projects, you know, which I think was the biggest benefit of the grant that we did, the Vallis is the last vacant redevelopment project
On the
on
street.
Commercial Street.
On the street.
Existing.
Unless somebody wanted to build on that corner, I guess.
Then it'd be brand new build, not rehab, so, which would be good. I'm just saying of the value of helping them bring those buildings back to code has been,
Existing structures.
that's been the biggest risk for people, is to buy one of those
I
old
see you
buildings.
putting a bunch of sheetrock through the back door of I call it the Williams store.
Yeah,
You know which one I mean, there on the
Yeah,
corner.
there's-
Yeah,
couple of apartments back there.
they still must be still working on that as well. Huh?
I think so.
Hmm.
Yep.
So pretty soon we won't have to do anything as a city council. The state will do it all. Right?
We dumped recreation. Now we'll do RDA. What's
Yeah.
next?
We'll just have a phone in the middle that says,
Yeah.
let's video conference the state and see what we're,
Yeah, what we're supposed to do.
Wow. Wow.
All of those years to get that where it is.
Yeah.
And then you might have a complaint that too much traffic there.
there was another bill that came out about city budgets, and they wanted the CPI and your percent population on your budget on your website, which our budget has nothing to do with.
Consumer price index.
Yeah. Yeah, so that if any line item changed in any percent outside of the,
CPI.
yeah, then we'd have to be able to say why it's going up or down, and it's not tied to any of those indicators. Your budget is your budget, right?
Like
Like,
your CPI was 3% and you couldn't have a 4% increase.
well, you just have to show it, right? And so, but the logistics in doing that, where everything's already posted, it's on the website, but that bill died, and instead of just pulling it, he said, I'm gonna keep on, make a substitute motion. Then I had an epiphany. It's like, I think we need to go to work on a bunch of state code. So we have a bunch of proposed legislation ready for some of them so that they can put their name on something. Like, right? It's like, oh, that bill died. We're sorry, but here's one that you might want to,
You can get your name out there.
Get another arrow out of the quiver.
yeah, here's one you could sponsor.
There you go.
It cleans up this section of code that it actually doesn't make any sense.
There's some truth to that. I'm convinced.
So, but
Well, it'll go one step further, Tony. We won't have a council because the state will be running the city.
I'm saying.
They're doing it piece
Well,
by piece anyway.
Well, pretty soon we won't have anything to do.
in the,
Look at Salt Lake and the mask deal.
Yeah.
They told them what to do.
yeah, on one of our calls, they said, yeah, we don't want to be like California. You know, we don't want to go that far. But then in my mind, it's like, but we're taking the Oregon model instead.
Yeah.
It's like all land use is controlled at the state level. I think there's a reason why a lot of the counties want to go to Idaho.
Whole portion of Idaho wants,
No, it's
of Oregon wants to.
Lot of- a lot of good intentions. I think just not a lot of understanding of how local government actually works and what we do. You know, they keep throwing out everything in a general plan, and I don't know that a lot of them understand how a general plan takes shape. It's over years of development. You can put whatever you want in a general plan, but until somebody requests a new zone or develops a property, it's gonna stay exactly like it looks today until that day happens. And they keep saying, hey,
Yeah.
right now they're talking about putting water as a element of the general plan.
Features.
Just all kinds of general plan, so.
Speaking of the general plan, what is the next step as far as?
So we got the initial draft back. We've taken some staff comments, and we're gonna, I think Teresa's brought it up at the planning commission. So if there's any input, we're gonna it's just basically clean up stuff like the parks and the cemetery are the same color and they're two different, you know, we're like, that doesn't really fit, or public space and churches are the same color, which that's our feedback is like, that's not the same, you know, might be public use, but, and then just some questions on annexation and boundaries and then some of the, like along the river, if that's calling for public open space or private compatible use, river usage. So anyway, we're just gonna call them back, and then by, I think March, we'll have a draft ready for the planning commission to start going to work on it. So I think that's all.
We close the RDA so Denise doesn't have a lot of extra
Yeah.
minutes.
Well, we were waiting until 15.
Yeah,
That's why we're ready now.
we're there.
She doesn't have to take minutes on all the side discussion. You don't have to put in the minutes that I'm drinking a V8
Yeah.
Energy Blue Pomegranate.
Take a
We
picture
don't
of it.
want to advertise that, although it is not live on YouTube.
It's recorded, but that's not official. This doesn't happen unless Denise documents it.
Puts it down.
You can't admit it. We learned that last time.
Denise, did you just say we could go into the work meeting?
Yeah, we can, as soon as he adjourns this one.
As soon as you make a motion to
We
it.
have a motion to adjourn the,
I'd move to close the RDA meeting.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjourned. I forgot my mallet.
I got a hammer out my truck.
Gary, we have a hot spot for you if you want to come over.
You're the new attorney. What do you mean?
Oh, I didn't even see that one come in. That's a good place to be.
sit at the head of the table.
Been slacking all day, haven't you?
It's a secondary water meter committee meeting.
Oh, boy.
That could have been interesting. No, it was, but it was in Salt Lake, at the Capitol.
Oh, part of the
Yeah, it's
Legislative.
legislature, yeah.
so they have legislation up there that requires all public and private companies meter up by 2030.
By 2000 what?
30?
That's
I'm all right with that. I'm 10 toes up by then.
That's good. I never thought of that. That's one idea that never got before the committee.
That's what we- maybe that's what we need to put-
The only thing you have to worry about is I hope you don't want to be under turf.
That's true, isn't it?
There'll be rocks swimming.
There won't be any
You
church,
said public and private, right?
public and private.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Opposed to that one.
Oh, there's, wow. It was greased. It really was. So,
Well, I'm gonna, on this work meeting, it's kind of nice because Ty has a lot of the details about this and
Agenda.
I've been able to, on item 1 and item 2. And we have Lance here. Thanks for being here, Lance.
Which one's first?
The sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Okay. So we talked about this at the last meeting that we got some bids, the bid sheets in the packet. We got good pricing. The Bid came back at 242, 202.
I'm having trouble with that one.
Yeah, that's what it means. But, so what happened is we had that one split into project area 1 and project area 2. And because of funding, we had a grant for project area 1, so we only bid out the one project, which is sidewalk from the library to 300 West on 100 North and not behind the middle school. We pulled that one, but the other day we got the mayor and I and Lance met with Rob White he's the Region 1 UDOT director, and kind of showed him around and told him, man, this is kind of a shame that we didn't get funded on this other side, because that would allow us to move the crosswalk to the this side of the intersection and have sidewalk from the schools all the way to 300 West. And where we're doing it doesn't include that. So about a week and a half later, then worked with their planning guy, and they give us $100,000 towards that project. So what we have tonight is to award basically project area 1 with the understanding that we're just going to do a change order or keep the pricing. So we're approving the bid, but we're going to add,
Another block.
that side. So it gives a little bit more value to the contractor, because while they're up here, they can do a little bit more work. And then,
And I think we're there the lowest bid.
Yeah.
You don't have to redo that, correct?
wait, yeah, if we accept the bid, so all things equal, that was still the lowest bid. So, they go through and evaluate and make sure there wasn't something missing or something that was out of whack based on what the bid was, and everything's in order. Good company, all that stuff. Then the other part, it's interesting because this side that we're awarding, the engineer estimate was 357,000 and the bid was for 242. So we actually got a lot better pricing. And on this other side, the engineer estimate's 262. So that amount will also be, that addition will only be, what would you say, Lance, like that side of the street? If you reduced it by the equal percentage, Yeah, that's okay. Anyway, so it'll bring it down to like 200,000 and then UDOT's gonna kick in 100 of it. And then the school is creating a parent drop-off, which is a portion of that amount too. And so we'll just have them pay for their portion. So our out-of-pocket costs just come down, so.
Is that the 52,000 that the school does,
Mhm,
sidewalk and landscaping?
yeah. Oh, yeah, was that in the bid or the packet?
It's in the engineer part.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. Yeah, and so of that remaining, UDOT will do 100,000. So we're down to 83 on a 260.
That'll actually come down to more item 20 on that. Part is a 2-inch overlay. Or originally, we were kind of shooting for the start. We were hoping to do curb out on both sides. But the sidewalk is all too low and it's gonna be a nice curb cut on. So that 2-inch overlay, that street's in good shape. This patch from the existing asphalt. Patch from the edge of existing asphalt to the curb, and we won't do that overlay where we're just doing one side. So it'll go down another $43,000.
So we're, in order to get that whole thing done, we're pretty happy with that. And then of the 242 on this side, 98,000 of that is a sidewalk grant. So pretty happy with the.
So the engineer estimate then was the 357. This is on the, and we're only doing the project one tonight, approving that.
Well, we're approving it, but what we're doing is we're approving that contractor, right?
Okay.
And we're accepting that bid, but acknowledging, so in our resolutions, I have the ability to negotiate or change orders. And so it's not the dollar amount that we're approving. I'm just saying, so for your awareness, what I'd like to do is both sides get the whole thing done as one project. But all those numbers just came in this week. So.
But so you have to bid out the project too still.
So just one project.
So Wilkinson is doing the one project for the 242?
And then a change order for the rest of the street. It's all one project.
I don't, it's not actually not even really a change order. They've agreed to do that portion of the work for the same unit pricing on the first portion.
So just in proportion to how much?
Yeah, we have unit prices on everything. We know what a section of sidewalk costs. We know what
Right.
road base costs, and they'll do this portion for the same unit pricing as the first one.
So when we make a motion on this tonight, we probably don't want to disclose a monetary figure, just.
But so it's all one project. It was all originally one project, but the reason why we divided it into two is because at one point the engineer estimate at 600,000+. Right? So then we said, well, let's just do the one side because we have a grant. We have the grant on this side.
Right.
So let's just scale back and plus we have to have that street, that side where all the homes and all the connections were made. This street's in terrible.
So if we, rather than talking dollars, Lance, you said that we know the rate. Do we know what the engineer said the rate was, and then what's the bid rate? Are we approving the rate tonight, I guess would be a question also.
Just their bid. So all their pricing's part of their bid.
Okay.
So all these line items stay per unit. So,
Okay.
so all we're doing is awarding that contract.
Contractor.
Yep. But it's the same thing. So the same process happens if we have a bid award and while they're here, we identify there's some sidewalk here, some sidewalk there, and they say, yeah, we'll give you the same unit pricing. Then we don't ever bid that out. We just adjust, we've already selected the contractor. So even if it was two separate projects, we would get the same pricing from any of the companies.
So it still seems to me there should be a comparison of the engineer's estimate plus the bid, whether it's a per unit. It's probably hard to do it on a total because of these changes, but how could we compare the engineer estimate versus what the bid is that we accepted?
On a
Per
Yeah,
unit.
they don't have to follow the,
Isn't
Isn't it in our packet? Because it says engineer's estimate at the first.
That's not in there. That's not in
Right
there.
here. That's what this is.
Yeah, I can't see.
Yeah.
But we don't tie a contract to an engineer estimate.
No, but see, there's the engineer estimate, Dave.
Okay.
I got it zoomed way in
Right, yeah.
on the
it's a-
first column.
it's a
Yeah.
242.
Well, that's
The first
theirs.
one's 268.
Right. And so he went down through and he's put all the totals, right?
There we go. That's a comparison.
See
there.
that?
Yeah.
There's your
Gotcha.
comparison.
Right.
See what I'm saying? The first
Yeah.
column is the engineer's estimate.
Okay.
So
So
he
that
goes
work has
through.
been done. We
Like,
just
let's
award the
take,
contract.
let's take that, I'm zoomed in, but
Yeah, I mean, I think
that
that's,
2-inch overlay, the engineer said it was gonna be 43,000 or 45,430. And JC Johnny,
Yeah.
59,383.
So
Yeah.
that's what the process is. When they go through and evaluate it after the bids, is the engineer will go say, hey, why is your cost so high on this one? Or
gotcha.
not on
Right.
this one. And sometimes it's, every company is different. Like they'll say, well, our mobilization costs are this, or we get our materials from here, so
Right.
our source is less, but this is more, so it's all, the engineers already,
I think the consideration is, for example, I mean, granted, we're taking the lowest bid, if you will, but
yeah.
we've got the engineer saying it's 268, the lowest bid is 240, but look at this Buckner bid down at the end, it's 415 for the same work that the 260. So I think that's our comparison
Yeah.
is, we're, in my mind, I feel better knowing that the bid that we have is within reason as to what the
Yeah,
engineer said it would be. And if it's less, all the better. But if it was the 415 and the engineer said it should be 268.
Oh, yeah.
then-
You'd be scrapping
Then
the
let's
project.
talk. Yeah. let's
and all
talk.
of it's less than the engineer estimate.
Okay.
Well, and I think there were 4 bids within $20,000,
Yeah,
if I did my
there were
math
some that were
right,
close.
which,
250, 254, 265.
yeah.
So they're all right there.
Yep. So anyway, that's our approach. That's kind of
Well,
what's
he's just
happened
throwing
and,
something out there.
and,
Contractors will do that. You Bid it, you just
and
throw something at it and
Yeah, well, they don't want the work.
because they don't want it. Oh my gosh, we got it.
or
We'll
if
do
we
it
can
for that
hurry and
much,
get it done at a certain time,
We'll fly to Virginia to do it, huh?
but anyway, that's the process that we've been through. Just at the end of last week, we got the money from UDOT.
So
I just
the,
told them like in order to get it done, we would be able to do the whole project if they could give us 100,000 and so.
the remaining balance we need to come up with to do the second part too, is we have that. Where does that come from?
From the budget. So our annual budget. So there's money for the project all the way through. It's just lining up in order between that, realigning Commercial Street and the bridge. Right? So we have in our current annual budget, we have enough to do the entire project in just the BNC road money and
Okay.
then the 1/4%. We have enough money with those
You'll need
matches.
Other monies to work on the bridge that you use.
Yeah,
this
so
for
it's just-
from next year.
Right, and so that'll help there, the Commercial Street realignment. And the school district's talking about selling us the property now. We're gonna go ask for about 500,000 of corridor preservation money. We're gonna ask for 250,000 for maintenance to go towards that. And then after that, then we're gonna ask for whatever the appraised value is for the property. So those are both county funds to buy the property from the school district. And then we'll use what we have saved for the bridge for the remaining balance in order to get that road done. Because we have 1.8 saved up for the bridge. And then that just pushes back how much money we can get scrapped together for the bridge, which is another year out. So
Right.
we're chipping away, but we might get, depending on how we get pricing on that Commercial Street realignment. But part of that project is we're not gonna do the sidewalk portion, and we've applied for a grant to do the trail instead of sidewalk. The school district the school district might want sewer extended to their bus garage, and they would pay for that sewer line extension.
Don't bring that up.
Just no, don't do it.
No, we wanted that in the very first place, but
Oh, well, I'm just saying that they would have, as part of that project, they would pay the sewer line portion because it's not currently in the road, which helps the overall, cost of the project. So anyway, there's whoever asked the question, we'll just keep chipping away and getting as much done as we can with the money that we have.
sounds like my wife and her chipmunk.
Yes, I was gonna say.
I do this and do that, I can do this.
But look how much I saved.
It's on sale.
Save you this much.
So anyway, and then the bridge, it's not gonna slow down or stop that project. It's just what our remaining balance is. And then next year, at the worst case scenario, if we don't get another source of funding for our portion of the bridge, then we can use the local option sales tax revenue for a revenue bond. Yeah, just to pay that down. So that's the,
For the bridge.
My comment
Yeah.
was, is we pushed to have the bus garage.
Get sewer.
On the sewer right off the bat, so they pushed back on that, so.
well, now there's a new opportunity. So does that make sense?
There's the
There's mud.
contingency, is that just something we provide or is that, that isn't part of the bid?
No, that's just part of the engineer estimate. Was that the engineer's estimate?
Yeah. But I mean,
Or
that
no, that's theirs. Yeah, that's,
well, that comes from the engineer.
oh yeah, that's engineer's estimate.
Yeah.
So that's just not knowing on, when they put the estimate together, what the
Contingency. Me to see a contractor participate in any of that?
No, that's just part, so when the engineer does his estimates or their estimates, they don't know if the price of concrete or
Okay.
something like that, or there's a, something, that's why they put a little variable in there.
Mhm.
And this time it looked like it was on the lower side. If you don't get bids, they're not competitive time of year. Materials, that's what the contingency covers on their estimate. So.
All right.
Okay, enough on the,
Yeah, good explanation. Good.
sewer. We only got the one bid, and this is the one I told you we were gonna go back, meet with them. Work it down. So in the packet, you can see it came down 108,000. I don't know if you have that. So basically what we did is we went through line item by line item, see where we could change a few things. Two things happened. One, we decided not to do the building over the pumps. So that, the engineer had designed that building to match the building, the new sewer lagoon building. So it was a little bit overbuilt, if you want to call it overbuilt. It wasn't an attached roof. It was just the walls, the beams, and then, the roof basically just sheltered the pumps. The pumps,
Canopy.
yeah, the pumps don't really need it. And so we decided to take that out and then we could go back and add a canopy in a normal budget year. But just in order to get the project to move forward, we took that out. So that was almost 100,000. And then we saved about 20,000 on the subcontractor that the contractor had a subcontractor for wiring. And we just proposed that maybe just look at Wetco that's doing our SCADA system and is already really familiar with the sewer lagoons and all that. And they gave better pricing. So they said, yeah, we're okay to use, Wetco. So that was another change order, saved another 16,000. So, so the overall project came down to 731. The other thing is, as that 731, that includes buying the equipment from Parkson.
The aerators,
Yep. So,
it's in that 731.
yeah, and that wasn't clear the first time when we did the bid. So, what happened is we haven't paid Parkson, we just paid the minimal to receive the blowers and all the stuff that's on the ground over there. But they put this into the contractor's responsibility so that if there's any discrepancy or we're missing this didn't work, this doesn't fit together, then the contractor is the one that's gonna work with Parkson on getting all the materials and stuff that they need. So that was last year's project that we never paid for. So there's $237 of this is to buy the materials that are already on the ground, take ownership of it.
200,000.
237,000.
Yeah.
So what that does is it brings it back to a reasonable place where we can use last year's budget, this year's budget. And then we'll go a little bit over on budgets, but because it's eligible to use impact fees, we can go in the negative on impact fees without doing a loan or anything. It'll take about 2 years of impact fees to bring it back up to zero. But because we're expanding capacity on the system, I think it'll take about 2 years of impact fees, but definitely worth doing now. Well, we'll have all the materials on the ground, and if we don't, we have to pay the 237 and then just let everything sit there and not get any benefit from it. The other thing is the contractor is hoping to get started right away, which we want it done as soon as possible too, before the summer, so that, the summer months are our bad months. Question.
I'm confused.
Sorry.
On the negative impact fees, how does, okay, help me with that. So the bids for 731,000, okay?
Mhm.
So we already have impact fees, I assume, in that fund. I
Yeah.
don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Plus we have the budget in place. So you're saying we can use impact fees that will be paid in the next couple of years?
Mhm. So on the line item, so there's enough money in the bank, right? There's enough fund balance.
Enough cash.
There's enough,
Okay,
there's
all
enough
right.
cash to cover everything, but on the line item, instead of applying it to capital improvements, I'm gonna take 2 years worth of the capital improvements, and
Okay.
then I'll just put the rest under impact fee expense. So bank-wise, budget, all of that, we're still gonna be in the positive, but on that line item, I'm just gonna go in the negative. So we don't have to say, hey, let's quit.
But the cash is there.
Yeah, and so as impact fees are collected,
All right, okay.
then it'll right side the impact fees because,
Kind of pay back.
yeah, so budget wise, when I'm like, what else are we gonna do to expand the sewer in the next 10 years? Well, it's really that until we go full mechanical deal.
That's about it.
Yeah.
I think once we hit this point, then we're pretty much.
Yeah, and this is supposed to buy us that much time, right?
That makes sense.
So it's a good use of,
That makes
it's a good use of impact fees, but if I didn't, the other option would be, okay, what are we gonna not do in normal expenses? And it doesn't make any sense to do that. I think we might as well apply, as much impact fees as we can to the project.
Letting the fund go negative, is that an issue with accountants or audits?
No, in fact, our water department's in that situation right now. And that showed up in our,
Right in the audit.
it wasn't an audit finding because it's accounted for, but that 100 water line project. Yeah, so much of that was because we're upgrading the size of the pipe. A lot of that expense we applied to impact fees. It drew it down into the negative, and then we're just letting that build itself back.
I understand now.
Okay.
How are we gonna go upside down?
Is that how your wife does that part of the checkbook?
That's why he lets Cindy do it. So
That would be pretty cool if we can be like, hey, I understand government budgeting enough, I can explain it in terms of the checkbook.
Yeah. The,
You got the money sitting in the bank, but the checkbook's gonna show we go negative for a while.
Let's go spend it.
Balances.
Yeah, and so the similar thing is I think we want to, award the contract, but be a little flexible on the, yeah, I wouldn't put a dollar amount on it. Some of the, I can tell you there's also going to be additional costs, whether it's part of this project or on its own. Because connecting it all up to SCADA, running the wires included in the project, but not the SCADA system itself to bring the aerators online as part of our SCADA, that's another 30 grand or so. So
How many aerators are there? How many are we putting in?
how many lines are there? 8? Do you remember? So they're I want to say there's about 8 or more. But it's those can also be shifted. So they've come up with a little design of how many to put in which ponds.
They're mobile.
Well, yeah, so to an extent, but there's all the stuff's there. And so as they build it out, it would not take a lot because they're putting in a main line. The air line will be down the side of the lagoon. And so to add another stringer is basically just another air connection, and you bring the diffusers up, string them across, then you hang them from a cable at whatever depth. So they're adjustable. You can pull them up and move them around. So it's just moving air manifolds.
Sounds like a wheel line to me. I don't know about you, Larry.
Somewhat in a way. Only these will blow air.
Yeah.
Just to stir it up.
Yeah, anyway, we went through all kinds of different pipe material to save costs and, where to put the filters, air filters so it protects the pumps. And I mean, it was a really good, I thought it was a really productive meeting, and we whittled away as touch everything we can to keep it going.
on the project cost of 731, is that the bid from the contractor or is that the engineer's estimate?
Well, that's the actual bid.
And then what's our engineer estimate? I didn't see that.
Yeah, the engineer estimate was less than that. I can look up. I don't think it's in the packet, but. Let me see if I can
So
find
much,
it.
yeah.
It was a lot lower. It was,
I know when you talked about that, you said you would go back and it sounds like you've done a lot of, you have done that and done work, but I mean, again, if we've got a big difference, should we be trying to reconcile that?
Here's one thing to think about that, Dave. Like, for instance, this one with this is Gary with JUB. Oftentimes those engineers, they got a pretty good idea, but oftentimes with their estimation, that's exactly what it is. They're taking a guess where they're not sure where the contractor is actually going to fall. That's why they put in there the contingency, because they don't really know. Like I gave the example, the price of concrete. I mean, the price of concrete, things fluctuate, and it's fluctuating really bad now. Like copper prices is just up and down, and lumber. So it's hard for sometimes the engineer to get pretty close. I mean,
There wasn't a lot of information on other bids then.
there were no other
there
bids.
were no other bids.
Really don't want to pay attention to engineer's estimate.
That's true.
What?
What's that,
That's-
Jeff? You don't
Really
bid?
don't need a lot of spend, a lot of worry on what they estimate because they really don't know.
They really
They-
don't.
Because they don't go out and get take the time to get all the prices and
Mhm.
on materials and
I guess,
petroleum items, they fluctuate just like the copper. It's just the day
the
to
check and balance is having multiple bids. So that, I mean, that could be a
Mhm.
concern there. that
Yeah,
we
if you
don't
have
have.
multiple bids.
Right.
We had, I think we had
I've seen
4.
multiple bids where one guy's way down in the bottom and you got
Right.
4 pretty close up here. So do you
Yeah,
want to
I-
award him that, or do you
No, I
want to go to the
understand, you know,
second?
you're not always taking the lowest, that,
You know,
you-
so.
you've got to be able to deliver too.
Isn't there also
Like that
kind of a
sidewalk,
rush
we
to
got
get
a lot of
this,
bids on that.
so we don't get a
They're all close.
slap?
Yeah, there's-
Sewer up.
Yeah, there's that part of it too.
Yes.
It helps, but there were 4 or 5 at the pre-bid opening. There were companies that were interested that just didn't even submit a bid, and so some of that, I think the contractor we got was like, yeah, we don't really prefer, the project, but we do want to keep a relationship with the city. We've done a lot of
I'm
work.
really surprised they bid it.
Yeah,
They would
yeah.
bid it,
but-
Wardell's would.
Yeah, but the other part of that is they're saying, but if we can hurry and get to it, like, when they're like, well, the material's on the ground, it's just a matter of like, as soon as the ground's ready, they can get started. Then it's almost like, well, we can not have this interfere with our other projects. And so, and they they liked working with us just to say, we'll do what we can because we don't want to not have a project or,
Jeff, did they have experience doing this?
The buildings and stuff, I'm sure they got subcontractors for the electrical part and all that, where they're using
but most of it's laying the pipe,
Yeah.
right? So
That's
they
their
do that all
business,
the
isn't it?
time, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, laying the pipe in the ground, and then Parks and the company will, during the setup, they'll send a representative to come and help with the connections and get it installed correctly.
The engineers inspect along the way?
Mhm. Yeah, they act as a project manager the whole time.
Okay, so we don't have an inspector other than just the engineers.
Mhm, correct.
Okay.
They'll probably come out on startup too, don't they, Ty?
Mhm.
And there's a set schedule on on what they should be inspecting and when and how.
Yeah, so,
Company sending out a rep to assist with it, is that?
yeah, the Parks and owns the technology, and so that's included in the purchase price that we get. But we have
So
go ahead.
Jeff, you talk about engineers not having a lot of ability to bid. Do they have the ability to
I'm not saying
inspect?
the ability bid, I'm saying they don't take
I mean,
the
for the
time
cost
to
estimate,
get
yeah.
all the prices to
They're
come
not
in.
good at that. Are they good at
Like
inspecting?
when we bid a job, you may be 3 weeks gathering up material quotes, and stuff like that. And
Okay,
stuff,
yeah, good
so,
point.
yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that design it. They have to be the
They
ones
do
inspecting
design
it, I
it, but
guess.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying is the prices and materials fluctuate every day.
Well,
And so they don't really
Especially
take the
right now,
time to,
doesn't
yeah, they just get a rough estimate, the best they can. Sometimes they're pretty close, sometimes they're not.
it?
and it depends on how recent the last, whatever, and this is so unique.
Maybe,
This is so much more unique than a road project.
Right.
right, they haven't
Yeah.
done 10 of these in the last year either.
Yeah.
Depends on how much work contractors have at the time too.
Well, an operational
I'm
cost,
sure it
right?
probably wasn't large enough for a few of these guys to even look at, I'll bet.
Yeah.
Some of these
That's
wastewater
a good
treatment
point.
guys are pretty large and they don't take stuff that's very
Mm-hmm.
small.
Yeah.
Can't cover their overhead.
Anyway, back to engineer cost just for fun,
If I can find one. It's
even though
been
we don't care what it is. It's
Yeah, I'll see if I can find one.
curious to,
I can see what you're saying, because you would bank on that engineer's estimate if if they were trying to be precise, but then a week later,
I
the
guess all it
prices
is-
are.
it's just a gauge, I guess, more than anything.
The other thing, engineer estimate is it's more for us internally. We don't even advertise what the
Right.
engineer estimate was.
Absolutely. but-
But budget wise, are we gonna do a project or not? If we apply for a grant, we use engineer estimates. So like the bridge engineer estimate was 3.8, but that was 4 years ago.
Will
That
it-
was with 20% contingency, and
will the grant have any requirement? I mean,
the which grant?
suppose a project costs 200,000 and we spend 800 on it, because that's what the grant was, could we be in trouble for that?
No, so the reporting requirements are just that. You just have to show what, most of those are a match requirement. So as long as we've spent our portion of a match on the eligible portion of work, right? So if the sidewalk portion or that sort of thing, then I just have to do the
There's-
grant
there's
reporting.
No discussion as to whether it was reasonable or not.
Nope, just as, it had to go to what it went to, and then you have to show that it was, accomplished, and other than
Again,
that.
back to the idea, if we had multiple bids, you'd feel better about it. Anyway, no, any number there or not?
Up until about, it's my experience up until the last few years, seems like most of the projects I can remember, a lot of the bids come in under the engineer's estimate, but I'm talking,
And then you feel warm
and not
and
the
fuzzy.
last few years when things have gone crazy, but
Then all of a sudden the engineers know what they're doing, right?
well, I
It comes in under.
think they try to. I used to think they actually are putting a little fat in this bid, because a lot of
Yeah, that's
times the bids come in
Again,
cheaper. Yeah,
Is it a little or is it a lot?
that's when things were crazy like they are right now as far as costs.
And that's kind of where I'm at too, is another thing is like, if we don't, and we say, let's hold on and rebid it in another year, I don't know that we get this good a pricing
Maybe
then
more
regardless of
expensive.
what the engineer estimate was, but, so this project's lingered on for so long.
Well,
Isn't the summer where the sewer doesn't do its job as well?
Correct.
Yeah, that's when we have the most difficulty hitting our numbers.
it's not the big deal.
Well, yeah.
We have the bid documents, but we don't put out the engineer
Sure.
estimate.
What it does.
So I'm like,
Before we just had the surface. on the
As soon as you
right,
do
just
that,
mix the
everybody's
top.
doing it
If
off
you
of
get the
that.
aerators down in the bottom, the theory is that. it
yeah, or
mixes-
they'll walk away from a project because they'll be like, if that's all they're paying.
Yeah.
then-
Will actually digest it better.
And that's what Cal was explaining. too.
Yeah, so you stir it up, you're basically stirring it up from the bottom instead of just. Top. You don't get down into the bottom where you need it, so.
Where it's been laying for a long time.
In fact, even in mechanical plants, they'll have aerators,
Was there put in the eighties?
Yeah, we put aerators in back then, yeah.
but they, yeah, those just, like I say,
Actually-
are stirred. the top.
Actually, we put some of those
These are
in
full
early in the
plants.
two thousands too. It seems like we put 3 or 4.
Well,
Yeah,
They
yeah,
have different sections where they'll actually
yeah.
stir it, so.
Before it goes into.
They
lasted a long time. Well, they don't even put them in lagoons. in that full
Yeah.
mechanical plant.
But I don't think.
Then
we
what
only
they'll
put in
do
like
is start
3 or 4,
separating
didn't
out
we?
the
I don't
sludge.
think it was
They'll start
already sometime
separating,
in
they'll
there.
have a clarifier that'll
2000.
separate out the
I
water.
think we put in
And they
8.
separate out the
Like 3 or
sludge,
4.
they send the sludge down to one place. Then they'll start separating off the water off the top. Take the water off the top, they'll disinfect it, and they put it in there, like the one in Colville, and they put it back in the reservoir.
So I have a,
Comes out clear enough that they say you can drink it.
Yeah.
Where they recycle it and run that water through a water treatment plant and recycle the water. They're talking about doing that down in Cedar
I
City.
think it was Roosevelt was irrigating.
Yeah.
Sprinkling. with-
There's a place down in Hurricane that actually takes that water off of the lagoons. And they've got a farm that they farm with, and they'll raise hay. He
Like I
does
said, it
that too.
was lower.
They'll
So
actually
their
take their water,
Original.
and pump it out onto the
It was
fields.
840 and we had it at 7,
Fertilize, and they'll raise hay off of it.
784.
We've done one years
I mean,
ago out
that's-
to Erda,
I don't feel so
Yeah.
bad about that.
over on a.
Mobilization. and aeration.
Yeah.
Out of
You're really
the
good. You
treatment facility.
Clean it up and bottle it, right?
Oh, well, that's what I said. There's places where they actually do that. They really do. They say the water coming out of that plant,
Not the water.
they say you can drink it, but I know places where they
690 would
actually
be the
recycle
comparison
it.
to-
Yeah.
Basically run it through a water treatment.
So,
plant.
I did find an engineer estimate because we had a grant application that we used for ARPA, and so 690 was the engineer estimate, and 784 to include the engineering costs. So 690 was comparable to the 8. So that was but now, with what we've taken out, it doesn't, of course, it doesn't include the canopy. But the engineer estimate on the canopy was 40,000. And because it's a steel building, you know, the subcontractor is like, it's 100,000. So I think the biggest discrepancy that we found was in the pricing for the shelter. And
Canopy.
yeah, and the subcontractor, I did talk to them because I said, you know, if we get a pad in, what does it take to come next year and do a shelter? And they said, we would actually do a different design altogether, because they said it was way over. You know, if all you need is to shelter some pumps, you know, we would probably design something with, based on whatever the material at the time, the best price of materials, instead of saying, here's our engineer, now go get the materials to
Yeah.
build it.
Well, I mean, that's $150,000 difference on a,
Yeah.
you know, $750,000 project. I think that's worthy of note. But what you're saying is that we've dumped probably the most onerous part of that difference. We can feel a little bit better about what's left.
Yeah, on something that doesn't really impact the project overall. So is what it is, but I think we're there, and just have a strategy, I think, in order to get it done. And
And this is all paid for by grant.
not this one. The sewer doesn't have a grant on it. We applied for one, but we didn't qualify or get awarded. We still will be looking for grant opportunities, you know, of course, if after this legislative session, they say, well, this is where, because the state still has a lot of the ARPA money that hasn't been allocated to certain departments.
Could,
So
after the fact, could it pay for some of it?
potentially, depending on the timing and application period, but it's, I think we had put maybe some of our water projects ahead of this one as far as grant funding go. So water tank, getting our park well chlorination building online, looping the system up on 525.
This will come
So we
money
could.
also.
This one,
Yeah,
this one and impact fees, because we're
So we
adding
could use
capacity.
Impact fees, right?
That portion that's attributable to future.
Future.
Yep.
That's Gary.
Yeah.
We don't have enough in impact fees to cover the whole thing, so we're gonna use as much of, you know, the capital improvement that we have, and then,
Yeah, but impact fees.
because technically 100% of this project is impact fee eligible. It's just,
For future growth.
we don't have 20 years to collect it.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Do you want you to cover your ears?
So, any other questions or agenda items?
Oh, that's it. Training from Gary, but I guess we.
Sorry, Gary.
Minutes? Well, let me just report that the legislators are tired of hearing from Ty Bailey
Good.
on retail incentives. Day he calls us daily, he calls us in the
No, I
night, he
don't.
calls us. Anyway, no, we got,
Our representative.
I sent a few emails and
and you know what? We appreciate that because this morning I talked to Ben Hart from GOYO. And they committed to add fourth class counties to the exemption for sales tax
I had heard though
incentives.
that it
So
didn't get out of a committee. Is that right today?
it's in committee on Thursday, 151, and it will get out. It's Representative Schultz's bill.
they've got support for it.
242, it might be what you're thinking, the water bill.
Could have been. I
It-
was
it-
told that by.
It got out
somebody.
too, actually. So, but yeah, those are leadership bills. They're bills the governor's behind. So it's kind of hard. The other thing we were able to do is get this is the only legislation that I know that has a penalty for municipalities.
Yes.
That if we actually,
You can get sued.
yeah, you can get sued by anybody. It's an open door. Come on, sue the city, essentially for giving
So
out.
that hasn't happened before. I mean, we saw that down in Texas, right, with abortion. I
Yes,
think
yeah.
that's what they were up to, but so I thought about that. Is that any more onerous? I mean, if it does come out, we just don't do it. What difference does it make if there's a civil penalty or not?
Well, for you guys, it doesn't make any difference.
If
It
we get
did,
exempt.
it did before today. Okay, but tonight they're actually taking out fourth class counties. So
Yeah.
for Morgan, you're okay, you're clear.
Sweet.
But for all the rest of the cities in the state, that would still be a big problem. It would have been a problem for you except for Ty. So he's, yeah,
Right on.
it was impactful.
I'm not
It's-
supposed to be a political person, but
Yeah. He beat the drum loud and
Yeah,
loud, so
that's
that's
what-
good.
Wow, good job.
So anyway, we'll see that come out tomorrow. Crazy, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there right now, especially when it comes to the funding,
That's what you said last year.
the ARPA funding.
The year before that. The year before that.
Dave, you got such a good memory. No, you don't need one,
Yeah.
right? It's, we just know for sure. But anyway, it's kind of a fun thing to be following some of this nutty stuff. So be sure to make sure your dog is tied down in the back of a truck and just little things like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so
Not-
that-
not only
They
tied
killed
down,
it,
but, you
though,
know,
did they?
Yeah, they did.
So-
What they did was they
What was the pin system?
moved to the next item on the agenda. It was, yeah,
again, on
Yeah.
a flatbed that's
So-
been doing that forever.
yeah. And anyway, they would have expected you to put it in a box.
Is
to
that
carry
serious?
her, or you couldn't just put it on a leash. You had to put it on a mesh.
They
You
don't
had to put a mesh over it.
I
So
have more important things to talk about than that.
they spent a good, 45 minutes, half an hour on that today.
It's a great example of a Wasatch Front
That's what I was
problem
just
that
gonna say.
doesn't.
Yeah,
that
she was
doesn't
from Salt
apply.
Lake.
Yeah.
And another comment that I think some wise person said, I think they're so far right that they're left. I think, well, no, I think the provision to sue the government, it's like,
Yes.
that sounds very
Yeah.
Okay, so
other side, doesn't it?
backstory on that. Did I tell you the backstory? Okay. So she is your legislator, Beckstrand, I think is her
Karen?
name. Karen.
Birkeland?
Kirkland, I'm sorry. How quick I forget. But it's held in rules. Interestingly enough, the league hired a new gal from the AG's office. And she came in, she's an attorney from the AG's office. And I said, do you guys have any problems with this bill on, cities having and the government period having to pay for lawsuits? And she goes, yeah, we sure do. That's going to cost us millions of dollars. And UDOT alone, their fiscal note on it's going to be 1/3 more than what they pay for roads right now. Because you'd have to consider that you're going to litigate just about everything. And I said, well, where do you think that's coming from? She's a Morgan mom. Oh, she's a Morgan resident and she has other things going on. And they said, well, this certain attorney has been suing the state of Utah over a bank closure. And has accrued many, many thousands of dollars in expert witness fees and also attorney's fees. And that's exactly what this bill covered, was expert witness fees and attorney's fees. And somebody actually works as a receptionist for it. So it's interesting how these things kind of, they come about. I mean, there's a good reason behind it, but it's usually sometimes, I shouldn't say always, but every once in a while it's a personal reason. So I think, plus, I mean, she's legitimately, I think, wanting to make sure that the little guy is taken care of. That the little person who feels that his civil rights have been violated by the city when he comes into the counter and gets thrown out on his ear, which never happens, but, maybe in the county, but not the city. Anyway, she was concerned about that, but the impact of it was gigantic. And that's generally what happens down there is they make a set of laws where the impact is incredibly large, hits everybody. Like, for example, I don't know what the cost of putting new meters on all of Morgan Secondary is, but it's got to be.
Well, we're almost there, but for like Beaver has an entire secondary water system. It's totally built out. They're not allowing any new connections and all the water's been appropriated to the people that have vested in that system. And they have really no reason to go meter. Right? Because
The water's there, it's theirs if it's not.
And
it's
it's
not
city
there.
that owns it. And then-
Mhm. Yeah, but it's been, but
They don't use more. Yeah, they don't
Right.
use more than what they're entitled to.
Well, they-
That's all
but
they're entitled
they-
to.
Right.
they don't use more than what they're entitled to. And if there's not flow, then they just don't get it.
Right.
Right? So the opposite's like you metered all you want, but it's not going to change the water in the system and it's not going to change the impact to the use. And so for them to pay $1,500 per connection, on a system that literally all they would have to do is say, sorry, we have to raise all of our rates and come and retrofit everybody's connection, but you're still allowed to use exactly what you have allotment to.
Well, do you remember the Weaver Basin tour we took this summer?
Mhm.
Do you remember that? I remember talking to that, and I thought all along that they were, the systems already had secondary water meters on them.
Mhm.
I thought they were they actually were assessing a fee. Doesn't sound like they are. It sounds like what they're trying to do is to get people to understand and realize how much they're using. And there's, I guess there's supposed to be some shock value if you say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was using this much water. And people are supposed to, on their own honor, cut back, I guess. That's kind of how I take it.
Well, an awareness, right? So for an awareness, like people don't and that is true, right? But to mandate it for every single system,
Yeah, well, no, I
That's
understand that. I just.
Everybody agrees.
we should conserve water and use it more
Yeah,
wisely.
Weaver
but
Basin will tell you that the metering is cut down on the total
Yeah.
use.
Just from knowing.
Yeah.
26 to 40%.
Yeah,
But
So it does work.
But then the cost benefit on other systems like that, or,
It'd take forever to get your money back.
or smaller
it's
systems.
about a $2,000 cost.
your payback would be
Put a
pretty
new
steep,
meter in.
wouldn't it, Eric? Your
$2,000
payback would be pretty steep.
The payback would be steep. I mean, I thought one time we just figured up just our little
Only 100
secondary water system here. Didn't we put a figure to it? And it was a couple $1 million just to do it.
Over $1 million.
It is a couple million.
It was a couple million, I think, right? And just right here in Morgan.
Does
So
the
you
bill
take
have
that
to have
statewide.
a dollar amount figured into it of what it will cost?
It does. And I can't remember the fiscal note on that. I think it's like $270 million is what they estimated, somewhere around there.
To the state or just in general for the cost of
The
it?
cost of putting all those meters in, but they've got 270,000 or 260 or some thousand connections that need to be made, and the dollars don't figure out. They've calculated at a very low level because it's about $2,000.
Yeah, times two is way more.
And a lot of those are in areas where they're in backyards and side yards and that type of thing. So,
It's going to cost more to get to.
yeah, well, but anyway, we did prepare something for training, but we'll look at it next time. It sounds like it's, so
Do we need to do it in this meeting or can we do it in the council
you
meeting?
can do it either one. It would only take about 10 minutes. So whatever you,
I think with
whatever
our
you-
work session here, we'll get through the council business in short order.
Under administrative updates.
Well, we'll excuse Ty.
need those. Those are more important.
Food truck licensing.
Oh, yes. Hey, they did add though, if you have an ice cream truck.
I think I can
just
just
say
say
meeting
meeting adjourned on this one, right?
Well, tomorrow's the halfway mark, Gary.
Discussion adjourned.
Oh, my.
You're halfway there.
I'm waving flags.
Been
man.
informative to me.
It's food trucks are out there every day. So. They must give free food to the legislators.
I'm sure they do.
I stole Eric's spot when I came in.
You're just fine. Yeah, thank you.
Lance, how are you? Yeah.
Oh, I did not. Oh, I guess I did. I don't. Oh, there it is. What I did do was a duck chuck. That's yours.
Ah, you'll be all right. Yeah. Just break it. Mm-hmm.
You know what, Dave? Do you know what?
I could read.
Oh, I thought you asked Dave to do the pledge. I'll do the pledge. No, I was kidding. I thought you asked me to do the pledge.
If you had one prepared, I'd take it.
thought you did the pledge. That's what I said. Do you know it?
Hey, did you have one written out?
You go with that tie? There it is.
Yeah.
You are, Ty.
Just for you.
Well, I forgot Ray's stick, so. How's that? All right.
We're good.
No, we're trying to move away from that.
It's an official. The reason you're mayor is to.
Facilitate, right?
I haven't got into that feeling yet.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. This will be the general meeting of the Morgan City Council. What is the date? February 8th, 2022. And we'd like to, now I'm trying to remember. Dave would offer us the prayer. And Tony's, I believe, going to do the pledge.
Okay. Our Father in heaven, we gather before thee as we begin our Morgan City Council meeting. We're thankful for the opportunities we have to come together to consider the affairs of the city. We're appreciative of the freedoms we enjoy, and we pray for those protecting them. We're thankful for this beautiful valley, and we ask that we might continue to inherit it. We pray that we might make proper decisions in the best interests of the city and the residents thereof. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Stand, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the meeting's agendas? Everybody had a chance to look over it?
I have a question on the warrants. It's kind of a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway. So, I mean, it doesn't amount to much dollar figure wise, but I noticed what we had something in the Morgan Secondary Water Association for office expenses. What is that?
I think it's annual assessment for water shares in. I don't have my warrants with me.
Just got one page. I think there's just.
You know what? Somebody.
Yeah, that one right there. Like I said, it's a very small amount. I just was curious why it would be coded under office expenses and supplies. It's $117, but where they're their own private company, I was just curious why we would have anything that we were paying for.
I borrow your, I just want to see which
I don't
fund
have
it's
the other
in.
pages.
Oh, so let me look at the fund and
Yeah, that's right. It's right there on page one. It's just, yeah,
About halfway down.
yeah, it just says it's 2350 for four items at 2350. Five items, sorry.
I can look and see why that one's a shared expense. It might just be because that's what we coded it to previously. And I'm not sure that we have another or better line item to put it in, so.
Okay,
I guess is your question why we're being charged that or why it's being coded to office?
Yeah, why would we be
Okay,
charged that? I mean,
both,
I guess both, yeah,
both.
but mainly why would we be paying them for office expenses and supplies? That would be my question. So.
I'm not sure we have a better category for it, but let me look and make sure
Well, like I said, it's not the end of the world, obviously. I was just curious as to.
but it's a good question.
Does the Morgan secondary water, does it sprinkle the grasses here?
Yeah, we.
It's not that,
Parks and.
not that yearly fee.
No, it's not that because we have a annual assessment for the shares that we own. Right, so we, but you know, where they apply to, I guess is the better question. That one might be better to recode it. Maybe just to parks and cemeteries, maybe 50-50 in both, but because of the categories, I can look at that one, so. It's a good one.
Time right at the bottom on that. Are we trading out trucks? It looks like we got 2 new vehicles. Are you selling more vehicles?
Yes,
Yukon and Silverado.
yep, so, those are replacing vehicles that we had already sold, but we
Already
do
sold,
have,
okay.
we have 2 more trucks coming. And we have 2 trucks to sell. But these ones were, the Yukon is an additional, we didn't replace a vehicle there, but that's a administrative or office car. So all the office staff share it, take it to conferences, trainings, and instead of using their own vehicle so much. And the other one was a replacement vehicle that we still have one more, by the way. So we had we had 5 different vehicles for sale and we have 1 left to sell, but we already had. So anyway, does that answer your question?
Yep.
Like one's a new one, but the other one's a replacement. And then that Silverado was a replacement from a Ram 1500 that we had already sold. And then we got a Ram, a 19 Ram this year to sell and a F-150, both 2019s that will sell, but their replacements are on their way.
How will the new 3500 be used?
Very efficiently. So
How about carefully?
it'll be the building, it'll be the inspector. The building inspector will drive it, so. And then, well, we have one in training. We have a person in training, so. So code enforcement and building official will drive that one.
Are you on, Ty?
Yeah.
I think
Do you not hear me?
I can't see his, but.
My input meter is going down.
But if I think real hard, picking anything up? We're on the same page a lot, so.
Any other discussion?
Where do you advertise that vehicles at, Ty?
So
On the Morgan City website or,
on KSL,
okay,
so if you remember, we have a surplus policy. We have a little committee and they're not all on KSL, but generally, and then we used a public surplus website. So each either equipment or vehicle, we go through and the committee kind of all agrees on a value. And then also they agree on a strategy of where the best place to surplus it. So if it's like, hey, this is so common, it'll be gone in a couple of hours or a couple days. And typically we just put it on KSL. If it's unique, like the sweeper, it was so unique, we put it on a national public surplus website. And it was on there for,
You get a bite.
yeah, it's sold. Yeah, we've sold that, a road grader, couple of
That's sweet.
Couple of trucks, a bucket.
Yeah.
truck, so
So Ty's given a price, the committee comes up with a level that we'd like to see it sold at, but he's also given permission to reduce that. Is it weekly?
it depends on,
Yeah,
so,
by amounts until it ultimately sells.
yeah. So the committee just says, hey, let's start it here. If it goes a week. Nobody, then they tell me, hey, reduce it by 1,000 every week or 1,500 every week, depending on the vehicle, just so we don't have it out there for 6 months.
I smile a little bit because an interested person will call and Ty will let them know that if it doesn't sell within a week, it'll drop $500 or $1,000, whatever it is. So if you want to wait a week, you may get it for a lower price without, question. The response is, well, maybe it's sold by then. Oh, well, then think about it now. Maybe it is. I mean, it's a good way to do it. Good psychology.
Well, and then we don't, we're just saying this is the price. If you want to wait for a week, it's first come, based on that. The other thing we do is, the committee also declares when a employee would be eligible. So for the most part, for the trucks, we're like, put it on for 3 days. And if an employee wants it after 3 days, we'd rather take that higher dollar amount than wait for a week for it to drop. But we feel like typically we felt like 3 days is enough. We get some of those, it's been a matter of an hour or so before.
Particularly the pickup trucks, and where they have low miles, they're in good shape, good condition. You haven't had any trouble moving those. Oftentimes at a profit. So I'd like to set up a used truck center. Supplement the city finances.
That's a good thing when we did that, though.
It is a good program.
That's a great program we did. Yep.
Like you've shared that with other towns, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it was wise.
we should package it. Maybe we can sell the program.
They've got rid of the barbed wire and tie wire and stuff. Yeah.
Careful,
Duct tape went down.
careful, Dave. I'll be a fleet manager and some other.
That's what I'm saying. You're shining there.
All right, we better move on.
Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion here. I will move that we approve of the minutes of the city council work meeting January 11th, 2022. The minutes of the city council meeting January 11th, 2022. The minutes of the city council work meeting January 25th, 2022. Minutes of the city council meeting January 25th, 2022. And the warrants dated from January 24th, 2022 through February 4th, 2022.
I'll second.
Motion from Tony to approve the minutes. I believe I repeat this, right? Okay. Minutes of the city council work meeting, January 11, 2022. Minutes of the city council meeting, January 11, 2022. The minutes of the city council work meeting, January 25th, 2022. And the minutes of the city council meeting, January 25th, 2022. And the warrants from January 24th, 2022 through February 4th, 2022. Stumped for words.
Don't proceed to vote. All in
Moved by-
favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
Let's skip over the public comment piece.
Dave.
Ask Denise if there's any public
Yeah, and then
comments.
I just read here to cover my mistake is that we can rearrange the order. So Denise, is there any public comments that you know of? Okay, let's go move to the item 6, active agenda. And is there any discussion? Bid award 2022 sidewalk project. 300 west to 100 west improvements on the south side of the road. That's resolution 2204.
I have a point of order here, Gary, if I might add. So we discussed this pretty thoroughly in a work meeting. So now that we're in the actual meeting, should this once again be turned over to Ty to kind of explain this? So there's a public record during the actual city council meeting, or could you
Just
just,
a preliminary description, because it's been discussed and looked at in the work meeting, but yeah,
That's
I
good.
mean, you just wouldn't want to go vote on it without having,
right.
right? Correct?
Because there may be some people that look
Okay,
at the
right.
regular meeting that weren't to the work meeting, so,
Okay,
but it's pretty fast.
okay.
I'll turn the.
Do I have to be
You.
fast?
He said brief.
We can
Oh.
speed the tape up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is it's just a chance to clarify. It's a street maintenance project, but it includes a new sidewalk. So it's more than just a sidewalk project. It's part of our annual maintenance. It's 100. The road is 100 north, correct?
Mhm.
So I get my streets confused, but we put it out for bid and it's actually got a segment there on both sides of State Street that will complete different segments of sidewalk and road improvements, but from Trojan Boulevard to 300 West, where there's not existing sidewalk, it was advertised as a street maintenance and sidewalk project. So anyway, that's what the project is. We got a handful of competitive bids. The bid sheet is in the packet. We are proposing to accept the low bid. It's been looked through by the engineer and all the costs. It's a reputable company, I think, that's done work for us before. So our recommendation is to accept the bid, the bid for the project, and includes 2 grants. One's a sidewalk grant, a Safe Route to Schools grant, it's called, on the north side, and for 98,000 on one side, and 100,000 is a Region 1 grant that will help us with the cost to improve that pedestrian traffic from the school to 300 West. So we're pretty excited. It's kind of the next segment. We just keep trying to add more sidewalk opportunities, as most of our kids are on one side of State Street and schools are all on the other. So.
Doesn't this allow like a crossing guard?
No, it's not a controlled intersection. We're just gonna, have UDOT move the crosswalk to the south side of the intersection there by Nebco. Because a lot of the traffic wants to turn in front there, and it'll be a little safer. A lot of the kids cross there anyway, because they're going from Nebco to the, across the street, and the library's right there, other, public facilities, and so just provide a little safer, clear place to cross.
The crosswalk would move south.
Yep. Yeah, across the street. Right now, I don't even think it's probably faded. But the other thing is on the north side where the crosswalk is, it has one of those irrigation headgate deals. I don't know what we call it, but that causes another visibility issue, for pedestrians. So just to enhance safety, and then the road portion of it is a leveling course and overlay to kind of repave, and the sidewalk will kind of add a definable space where the shoulder of the road and people's front yards isn't really well delineated. And then we did a water project, so that asphalt surface is in terrible shape. And we kind of planned that. We planned on doing the water line project before we did the road work. So
That overlay is on the entire road,
for most of it, yeah, on the
south side,
east side.
south.
No, the sidewalk's on the south side, but the pavement's from the west side of State Street.
Right, but the length of 300 west to 200 east on 100 north, it includes paving that road.
Yeah, the whole road, yeah.
Gotcha.
We'll get, normally, when you mention a north or a south, it helps everybody, but for some reason here. The
Just tell me whose house it's by.
compass and it sits there and spins in circles, so it's kind of a weird phenomenon that we have here.
We're only gonna overlay from State Street to 300 West. We're not gonna overlay from State Street to 200 East.
Okay.
That's in pretty good shape for the time being, so.
Didn't cut through that with the water lines, did we?
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't do water line that way. It received a chip seal just a few years ago and it's in pretty good condition. So we're gonna hold off on an overlay there.
Be a nice improvement.
Any more discussion?
Mayor, I'd make a motion. And that is, considering the prior discussion in our work meeting, I would move to approve resolution 2204, authorizing an agreement with J. Wilkinson and Sons LLC for the 2022 sidewalk project, authorizing further negotiations and change orders necessary for the completion of the 2022 sidewalk project.
Have Dave with a motion to award the bid on the 2022 sidewalk project. I don't know if I'm correct. Do I just? Because of it's expanding to another.
Just read that.
Just read that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just read that.
Just read that top part right there.
Authorizing an agreement with J. Wilkinson and Son LLC for the 2022 sidewalk project. Authorizing further negotiations and change orders necessary for the completion of the 2022 sidewalk project. Do we have a second?
That the motion and second has been made. Just ask if there's any other discussion.
Is there any other discussion? I'm lacking on the second.
No, we had one.
I seconded it.
Tony seconded.
So we have a motion for Dave and a second from Tony.
Yes, sir.
No other discussion. All in favor?
Well, like, is a resolution. We gotta do a roll call vote.
That's right.
Not for resolution.
Oh, not for resolution.
Yeah, just an ordinance.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You gotta do roll call.
We need a roll call.
What
Right?
you said.
I don't,
If,
You were right.
if an item, whether it's an ordinance or a resolution, if it deals with the expenditure of funds,
oh, there we go.
then you have to do a roll call vote.
We gotta do a roll call.
Yeah, good
vote.
clarification.
So it's not because it's
I
a
was right.
resolution, it's because
You were right.
you were
I
right.
was right.
Right.
Tell your
I'm like,
wife-
right
tell your
on.
wife that.
I was finally right.
Yeah.
We just didn't want to do it. We didn't want
Not
to
even seen
acknowledge
it.
that.
Councilmember London,
Aye.
Councilmember Wardell,
Aye.
Councilmember Turner,
Aye.
Councilmember Richens,
Aye.
Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Looks like it's unanimous. Okay, moving along. The bid award for the construction and installation of the sewer lagoon aeration treatment system, resolution 2205. Is there any discussion?
So I'll just introduce the
Maybe
topic.
have Ty introduce it again.
Yes.
Is that okay? So this is a project we've had in the works for quite a while. In fact, last year, we approved a contract with Parkson to supply the diffusers, and this is the project to install the diffusers of the equipment that we already have on the ground. We only received the one bid last week. We felt like it was a little high in order to get the project off the works, but we did meet with the contractor and find out where we could cut back on the project. And we've done that. So it's really, we just eliminated kind of the building over the pump structure for now. We'll add that in a subsequent budget year. But this will allow the project to go forward and get our lagoons the oxygen that they need to prolong their life and do their job. So we're doing everything we can to keep those lagoons healthy and functioning properly. So we feel, even though we only got the one bid, we do feel good about the pricing and the time frame. The contractor's eager to get started. The material's already on the ground, so we think we can get this done, before the warm season. So hopefully by May.
Here. I'm prepared to make a motion. After thoroughly vetting this out and discussing this in our work meeting, I make a motion that we approve of resolution 22-05, authorizing an agreement with Wardell Brothers Construction and Installation for the Morgan WWTP Lagoon Aeration Improvements Project, authorizing further negotiations and change orders necessary for the completion of the Morgan WWTP Lagoon Aeration Improvements Project.
Okay, Tony made a motion on,
I'll second it.
seconded by Eric. To resolution 2205, authorizing an agreement with Wardell Brothers Construction and Installation for the Morgan WWTP Lagoon Aeration Improvements Project, authorizing further negotiations and change orders necessary for the completion of the Morgan WWTP Lagoon Aeration Improvements Projects. Councilman London,
Just ask for it. Just say any other.
is there any other
discussion?
discussion? Councilman London,
Aye.
Councilman Member Wardell,
Aye.
Councilmember Turner,
Aye.
Councilmember Richens,
Aye.
Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Okay, city reports and business. Do you have anything, Ty?
Just kind of an update. We finished our employee satisfaction survey, so all the employees are going to get the results of that. Part of that is they do a peer review of each other, and then there's a couple of comments where they give feedback to me as a city manager. Felt like we had really good, well, we had 100% participation because it's mandatory. But what I meant, where I was headed with that is we had really good, I felt like we had good, honest feedback, which is, what you really hope for. And I just think we did this 2 years ago, and overall the comments and I think there's momentum, a lot more positive outlook on one another. Employee satisfaction was really good. They felt like they're taken care of. One of the questions was council support, and the council support was actually rated higher than how well I was doing as a city manager. So I just think that that's a really good indicator, because I take that as a huge compliment, because there's things I have to just deal with that it's not necessarily going to be the most popular thing, but
Were the surveys done anonymously?
Yep. Yeah, 100% anonymously. So I can email a copy of that to the council if you're interested. It just kind of shows where everybody is at. But we use that as a tool for goal setting. So we're in that goal setting process for the year. The incentive program that we have, one of the line items is a goal based on the peer review, the results from the survey. So some of the questions are like, are you approachable? You're happy to see this person when you come to work every day. I trust that this person doesn't talk about me when I'm not around. So it gets right into some of those inner office things, but overall it's positive. And even when they're not, I think it's really good feedback for people to know, because sometimes it doesn't match our own perception or, what's going on in our own head. The perception we're giving off. And then sometimes it's just a matter of like, well, I don't work enough with this other employee to even know. So that's even a good indicator. But so that's kind of what we're working on right now. We have, I just meet with everybody individually to set their goals. And so those are getting scheduled. Do you have a?
Yeah, I would maybe suggest, I'd like to make it part of your annual contract evaluation, if you could provide that as one of the documents.
Okay.
Yeah, it could give an overall feeling of an assessment of how we're doing, particularly if we compare one year to the next. Now, realizing this is just starting, but.
Well, we do have 2 years, but we do have, different mix of employees as well. So we don't, I'll definitely, provide that.
Okay.
That's a good thought. And then you can also see the specific comments that employees made for me. Just maybe some insight there. Then another update is this building just got a defibrillator, so it's on the wall in the hallway right out there. And we have 4 others.
Didn't know how to use it.
5 others. So one for the other public works building, and then we have a couple in the trucks. So, if they're at the park and need it, or an employee needs it, or just, we have in just a couple of key.
That's how you get the employee to give you a good review.
Yeah. No, it's not very forceful, but we coordinated that with the fire department, and so they helped us order it, made sure that it was compatible. So, if they showed up, that the leads and all that can easily be transferred to their equipment, and they're trained on them. And the employees all did a CPR training like last month in January, wasn't it? No, December. So anyway, but now the defibrillator showed up, so that's going.
Defibrillator.
Then our bid, we have bids coming in for the basement project and the depot. Next week, those are still both out there, so we'll see what we get.
Saw those in the paper.
Good, I think that's for bid for the
street.
So Ty, who will maintain the AED machines? Will that be somebody will inspect them, I assume, yearly or something, make sure the batteries are good and all that sort of thing, right? I guess would that be the fire department that would do that, or?
No, that's us. We own,
We'd have.
yeah, we own them. They're on a registry so that they do know where they are, right? So all of those get listed as far as, where the nearest AED is, but I
just know at the work, we had them all over the place too, and they sort of become forgotten after a while, and you haven't looked at or serviced for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we talked about that, and that's why it's located right by the restroom, so people are gonna walk by it frequently. It's right in the hallway, so out either door or the employee, or if we have something in this room, easy to get to, yeah. So, but yeah, that'll.
Pretty instructional.
Yeah, they talk to you and tell you what to do, and
Yeah.
yep. I think that's all the updates I have, unless Lance or Denise, do you have anything else I'm spacing on?
No, we had a great management meeting today. We got to talk to the users. It was good.
So as a management team, we're focusing on leadership. We have really capable employees, but not, a lot of people have been in a leadership position before. And so that's something that we've just been focusing on. So we had a lunch, we watched the show Hoosiers, and they all took notes on leadership lessons exhibited by the coach. So it's kind of a fun time, good discussion. And then all of the managers are going to have a leadership goal on their goal setting, as well as on their own personal development goal. I'm asking them all to think about their next step and what they're going to try and work on this year for leadership qualities. And it was good. We have a good team. There was.
You do that here?
Yeah, we did that in here.
That's very good.
So
You got a big screen to do it on.
actually, they all sat up here and had their own little,
Private viewing.
we had some down there too, but
And then 6 hours of the Olympics after that.
nope, but I think that's all I have unless council has questions.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Is Trax Motorsports, is it still in business over there?
I think so.
Okay.
So,
I just don't see anything over there. Maybe they're all leased out or rented out or.
Well, or-
canceled them all or-
or move stuff, but they actually took the building next to them. So you know where the
Popcorn place.
popcorn is,
Yeah.
but the building
there.
right, no, they're there, but they also rent out for office space, the building right next to.
I just hadn't seen anything there for a while. I thought they still in business there, so,
Yeah, ice fishing equipment's not so obvious.
yeah, yeah,
No, normally they have snowmobiles and
yeah, stuff there, but
stuff, but
maybe they got them all sold or leased out, so.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Are they still in conjunction with the Bear River
Mm.
side?
Isn't it Roger Agate?
Possibly
Yeah.
everything's up there.
So, yeah, I haven't heard of anything changing there, so.
Okay.
It's good to know.
Ty. You're a great man.
Oh, thanks.
Does the council have any further discussion on anything?
Reminder, if you wanted to go to the Utah League of Cities and Towns conference, make sure you let Wanda know. I think a couple of you have signed up, so. And then the other part of that is if you have your own plans or if you're interested in ride sharing, that's something else that we can coordinate because we do have
The Yukon.
we have a Yukon out there that can accommodate some down and backers. So however that works out. There's, I think the mayor and I are going to a water conference in March that has a really good agenda. Our water and sewer guys are going to that conference, but they usually focus on getting certified in their trainings. And there's some other topics on there that
It also has good door prizes.
that one does.
That one does, yeah. You might win you a head golden boy or something there.
Come see me, Ty.
Are you in a vendor booth? I
That's
sh-
a big deal.
I sure will. Bring your good stuff.
Ties, huh?
Your good stuff under $50.
Yeah, well, it's kind of an interesting thing because each service district or each city have their own kind of rules and how they treat that. So it's kind of interesting to see how that works.
Are we gonna be in on the water taste test, the water taste contest? You can say that.
I don't know if that's this,
Is that this convention?
is it this one or
Is this,
the fall one?
is this real water you're going?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the one where they do. the
Yeah, I don't know what cycle we normally,
I think
Do
it's
that
in
in-
Yeah, it's in the springtime, I think.
We
so it
didn't
is
put
this
up a-
one?
We didn't put up a billboard. Yeah, it's in the spring.
I think it's in.
We didn't put up a billboard like
Fall
Beaver
one's
the year
kinda
we
small.
won it, but
Yeah.
It's 2 years now. Isn't it?
we won it once. I know Beaver, they put up a big billboard when they won it.
So it's one that I haven't really been to. But our current water guys are more operators, and Jamie used to pay attention to a lot of the legislation and a lot of those types of things. And so I'm just getting a little bit more involved in.
Is it the one where they can get certificate, they can get certificate? Yeah, it's the World Water one.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, because they used to have it about this time of year,
Okay.
February or.
Yeah, we just looked at the agenda, and Chad actually brought it up and said, hey, this might be a good one for you to go to. So
Back in the old days when I had the water enterprise
Oh.
fund, I actually went to it a few times way back with Arnold Smith, and it is pretty, there's some
Pretty
good information down there. So, by
yeah,
the way, I never won a door prize, but they do have some pretty decent door prizes.
Tony gets me golf balls almost every league.
Would you hand one to Tony, Eric?
I gotta see what we got even.
Well, just left over from last year.
I just want to give a pat on the back to someone too, if I may.
Yeah, for sure.
I noticed that Denise put out an email where she had not an invitation, but a notice of the COG meeting coming up. I thought it was kind of interesting, kind of neat that she put on there. Wasatch Front Regional Council, the committee meetings that were going to be held and who was responsible to go. I thought that was pretty, I thought that was heads up, really heads up for you to do that. So,
An email for what?
huh?
An email for what?
The COG.
The COG, Council of
Oh,
Government.
okay,
And, and so these folks on the Council of Government, some of them have, committees they're on that have to do with Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Oh, okay.
And so I'd never seen it before, but Denise actually basically said before, our next meeting, here is some of these committee meetings that are taking place, and here's who's responsible to go. Yeah.
She's keeping you out of trouble, huh?
I thought that was
Yeah,
kind
good.
of above and beyond the call of duty. So
Yeah, right on.
good job.
I'll tell you about another thing as well. The,
I'd like to hear from Gary. Do we have time to do that now?
there's a North Davis County training, planning and zoning training that is going to be on February 24th, and they'll repeat it on March 3rd. And I just sent a flyer to Denise, and if she can get it out. to all
She
of you.
did.
And then it comes with the brand new manual, ground rules manual, which is really useful. And then,
So we're actually hosting that training here.
oh, are you?
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say March the 7th. Didn't I get an invite to that?
I didn't know that they'd planned it for March 7th
Well,
as well.
we requested it.
Oh, did
Yeah,
you?
she said it today.
So sorry, that's probably should have been in my updates.
No, that's okay. I just didn't know.
With
they did
Wilf
it in
and-
Morgan. Yeah, Wilf,
yeah.
and
The author.
Yes. You'll be there?
it's good. I won't be to that one.
Okay.
Because I'll actually be getting ready to go out of town, but these are seminars that I sit on a board called the Utah Land Use Institute board. And it's kind of a think tank for land use. And Craig Call, Will Summercorn, and there's a couple of professors from out of state and in-state that sit on that, and they try to do education in land use. Craig's the old ombudsman from years ago, and they do a really, really good job of training. It's entertaining. It's
That's fun.
fantastic.
There was a reference, Gary, that it's required. Is that something new?
For planning commissions,
Planning.
you're required to have 4 hours a year.
Of training, not that one
Training.
specifically.
I
but
see.
of training.
Okay.
So, and one of the hours is your attendance at the meeting. So 3 hours roughly, and that's kind of what this
This
is.
will
3 hours.
satisfy that. Yeah.
It satisfies that requirement. City councils aren't required to have that, but it's still really good training for you
Mhm.
if you plan on going. It's
But
really
we
good.
can put the date for that out in case you can't make it to the one that we're hosting. But either way, you're probably invited, because we're gonna invite the county
Super.
and make it a little bit more of a regional thing.
You'll autograph the free book?
Yeah. I'm not responsible for writing that. The original one I participated in, I did the annexation section. But this new one, Craig has just pretty much done it on his own.
Okay.
Craig and Wilf.
Mhm.
You got,
Great.
like I say, you got the best there, so. Well, do you want to just a brief training?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to hear
just-
from you,
Just really briefly, remember we talked about administrative and legislative decisions.
right?
Which hat are you wearing?
Mhm.
I've got in front of you, there's just a real quick best practices when it comes to ordinances. The reason knowing what hat you're wearing is important is because you've got different types of decisions that you make. And the first indication as to what kind of decision you're making is it's either a resolution or an ordinance. Those are the two ways that you make decisions as a city council. This city council is 6-member council form of government, so you have both administrative and legislative authority. And whenever you look at an ordinance, the standard for determining whether or not you made a rational decision on that ordinance is just simply, did you have a rational basis for making that decision? And when it comes to zoning, the rational basis has to be zoning related. So it has to deal with the health, safety, or welfare of the community. That's your rational basis. But really, you've got broad, I haven't seen a decision of a city council that has been reversed by a court or a legislative decision, reversed by a court or the Supreme Court in my 30 years as in municipal
It's
government.
pretty strong, man, isn't it?
It really is. However, I have seen the opposite. I have seen administrative decisions often reversed, and I've seen cities sued over the bad administrative decisions, excessive exactions, improper requirements for a subdivision, not approving conditional use because conditional uses pretty much are always subject to being approved.
Right.
There's when you put a conditional use down in your code and say barbershops are going to be conditional uses, what you're essentially saying is in every zone that we allow barbershops as a conditional use, there's a way of mitigating the negative impacts of that thing. And if you can't find a way, then you shouldn't have it in the zone.
Mhm.
Shouldn't have a conditional use in the zone. So just a couple of tips on ordinances. Everything you do, and I'm not even going to go in order because there's just a ton of stuff, and I promised you not more than 10 minutes on this
Okay.
stuff. So, but the key is if you see it on your page and it says ordinance in front of it, you know that it's a legislative decision. You got lots of flexibility. Administrative decisions require not just a rational basis, but they require that you weigh the evidence and that there be substantial evidence in favor of the decision that you're making. That doesn't mean 90%, you're convinced 90% of the evidence convinces you that it's correct. It means just more likely than not. And the courts have even said it's just a little bit less than that. So both decisions are really easy to make. The standard's really easy, but on the substantial evidence, you really have to put something on the record. You should in the legislative decisions, but you really have to when it comes to your administrative decisions. So if you see something that says resolution on it, and you're approving something by resolution, you know it's an administrative decision. If you see a subdivision approval, you know it's an administrative decision. If you see a site plan approval, you know it's an administrative decision. And so those, essentially what you're doing is you're taking laws that you already passed and you're applying them to a fact situation. So
Contract
that's
would be administrative also.
administrative also.
And so you talk about having some information to support that. That would be, in this case, our discussion in the work meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, so that needs to be rational and specific to that, i.e. looking at bids versus engineers' estimates and so forth.
That's why that work meeting is really handy.
Yeah.
Is because you kind of get all the ideas as to why this is an
Mhm.
appropriate thing. for
Why
you
we
do.
want to do it, yeah.
Why you want to do it.
Yeah.
But yes, the administrative decisions that you make are subject to an appeal, to an appeal authority. The appeal authority in Morgan City is an administrative law judge, an ALJ. We would hire somebody if there's ever an appeal from your administrative decision. For example, a subdivision, they think that the requirements are excessive or outside of the code, that type of thing. We would hire a person, and there are a number of them that we can hire to come in and listen to the appeal. But we haven't had one. You guys have done a great job. You work things through.
Well, I think your example last meeting was a good one about the novice council member requiring a park.
Park instead of a road.
Yes, look.
Roads required by
yeah,
ordinance, but you don't have.
Yeah,
to put
Mr.
that in.
Developer, you won't have the cost of that road. How about a park for us?
Perfect. That's a perfect example of what would be reversed
Mhm.
and where it may cost you money or it may cost. The most expensive decisions that are made wrong are land use decisions.
Mhm.
Second to that are personnel decisions. And that's the reason Ty keeps such a close tab on personnel and what happens.
The
there.
defibrillator close.
Yeah, that's right. We'll do that. So going down through, there's just a couple of other things. One of the biggest issues up at the legislature right now is the development communities complaining because hidden in a planning commission agenda can be an item where they're changing the text of an ordinance. And you might miss that because typically if you just put changing the text of chapter such and such, verse such and such, and you don't put any description of what it does, somebody might miss that. And yet that may end up in costing that somebody thousands of dollars on a property development. Give an example. If you change the ordinance and require 100% brick now in every single subdivision, that's a text change. But does it affect the value of a person's subdivision if they're getting ready to subdivide? Absolutely does. All of a sudden you got several $100,000 more because everything has to be built to brick within a subdivision. So what they're complaining about is right here, just a little bit further down, it says that your descriptions, it says the substance of what is in the ordinance really ought to be enough that somebody by looking at it can tell what's in the ordinance, what the ordinance is all about. So if you got a text change, you should really do a little more than just say, we're changing chapter such and such, verse such and such. You should actually do a little bit of a description. We're requiring brick or changing the materials that we're dealing with, or changing the engineering standards, the road widths, whatever you happen to be doing in that change, it really ought to be enough so that somebody reasonably looking at it could pull that out and say, gee, I need to look at this.
But that's a council a decision, not a planning commission.
So it goes to every land use decision goes to the planning commission first, and they have to give a recommendation to you. So the agenda that's used in a planning commission meeting would be really good to use in the city, or should be good to use in a city council meeting. You should have enough indication of what's in there in that meeting.
You talk about a text change, you're not talking about an ordinance change, a text to the ordinance, you're talking about the.
The ordinance,
Subdivision.
an ordinance, of course, starts as this raw thing that you see come in front of you where it says ordinance up above. And then after you approve it, it goes to codification. It goes in the book that Denise keeps online is what it does.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about, is any change in your local ordinance where you're changing the text of that ordinance to require something additional. That really should be defined a little more carefully in the
But it's the council that has to approve that change.
ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at an ordinance that actually changes the number of public hearings that you need in order to comport with state law.
Okay.
State law only requires one public hearing for a master plan. Is a master plan change legislative or administrative? Master plan change?
Legislative.
It's legislative, yeah, because it's done by ordinance. Zone change, legislative or administrative? Legislative again, right? And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be changing the text of the ordinance regarding appeals, administrative or legislative, to change the text of the ordinance.
Legislative.
Legislative, right? And then when you actually apply that, in other words, you hold a public meeting or a public hearing.
Administrative.
It's administrative in the application of it. So what we've got is we've got an ordinance that will take it will require one public hearing at the planning commission level, and then a public meeting at the city council level for general plan changes or master plan changes and for zoning ordinances.
Okay.
And so you're not going to have two full-blown hearings. Single family rezones, what are those? Legislative or administrative?
California.
California. They're legislative. They're legislative. Yeah. The courts have recently opined that they're legislative. How about the approval? This is the last question. How about the approval of a development agreement? Legislative or
Administrative.
Administrative.
Yeah.
Okay. It's usually approved by resolution. However, the Supreme Court upset the cart this last year by saying, you know what, we're gonna look past what you called it. And we're gonna see whether or not you really made it or a legislative decision or an administrative decision. And it was
Our Supreme Court or Utah?
our Supreme Court, Utah Supreme Court. And there's a case in Moab where Moab, right next to, have any of you been to the Lion's Back? The great big, it's a hill that sits about that level and everybody tries to go up with
The
their
rock
four wheelers.
climbing hill. Yeah.
And anyway, around that, they had a hotel plan and they had so many units, so many single family units planned. And years ago, they entered into a development agreement for that. Well, years later, when the market started to pick up again, a developer came in and said, well, we'd like to just go ahead and develop. It's already been zoned for hotel and for residential, but we want a few more units. We want another, it was a substantial number more units.
Imagine that.
And the city goes, well, we don't want to have to go through the zone change because that's subject to referendum. It's a legislative decision subject to referendum. So let's just do it administratively. Let's just do it by contract. We'll let you increase the number of homes. And the court looked at it and said, wait a second. You're doing administratively what you couldn't do legislatively.
But you should have done legislative.
What you should have done legislatively. And so they said, we're going to look past that and we're going to let them file a referendum on that.
Mm.
So that was a recent decision. So you just got to be a little bit careful, but you won't come across very many of those where you're making a legislative decision in your contracts. So.
Back to public hearings, Gary, if there, would there ever be a need? I think in our original training you gave us here last month, they made reference, and I wanted to clarify that if there was additional or new information that we felt was out there, we could hold a second public hearing.
Yes, yeah, nothing prohibits you from holding
Okay, good point.
public hearing. Those do need to be advertised a little bit differently,
Mhm.
but there's nothing that prevents you in a public meeting from,
Listening also.
and guess who controls the public meetings?
Mhm.
If you got really bad city council meetings, guess who you blame?
Steve?
It's always the mayor.
Yeah, the buck stops there.
We haven't had a bad one yet. So
Yeah.
it's been great. But the mayor really controls the agenda. He controls, he can shift things around on the agenda the way he did tonight. That was perfectly acceptable. So can the council. You guys can make a motion to move something around on the agenda if you want to.
So say a public comment period, and we haven't seen it here, like you say, but I mean, as recently as probably a month or two down in Salt Lake with mass or whatever, meetings got out of control or they went excessively long. What kind of, do we have to listen to everybody? If it gets heated, can it be shut down?
No. Once again, the mayor controls the meeting.
Okay.
And it's the mayor that would say, can you sum things up? Or we've heard this information before. Or if there's one of you that can speak for all of you, that will really help. Or you can use your 3-minute timer the way the legislature does. Just say, you know what, since there's so many out there and everybody wants the opportunity to speak, we're going to give each one of you 3 minutes and then you have Denise time it for you.
But suppose there were 100 people that wanted to comment, and I mean, you knew that the line went around the building 2 or 3 times. Would you have to listen to every single one?
So one of the ways of dealing with that is if you know you're going to have a lot of people, you have a table at the back with cards on it.
Okay.
And you take the comments by cards.
Mhm.
And
That way everybody gets heard.
that way everybody gets heard. And that's one of the ways of doing it. Or you do, if you haven't got 100, say you've only got, enough,
20,
even 50.
Yeah,
it's gonna be- You give them all 3 minutes.
right, 150 minutes.
You got it right. And so the best thing to do would be to do that for the larger groups, the not so large groups, do the timer. And where you just got 1 or 2 people. It's up to the mayor as to whether or not he wants to.
And certainly if it got out of hand emotionally, we can say time's up, it's over, and finish writing your comments on the card, I guess.
Yeah, we've had police officers, attend the meetings. So
Mhm.
just when they're real emotional meetings.
Yeah.
Some of it too is if you just say, here's the list of issues that have been brought up and concerns. Is there anybody with a new issue that hasn't already been
Uh-huh.
addressed, so that all of the issues get vetted? But you have to communicate to the public. You're not here to vote. So it doesn't matter how many for
Yeah.
or against,
Yeah, I think there's a-
or doesn't matter how loud you speak, if the concern is the same.
how emotional you
And you've
are.
already
Yeah.
heard it, you know what I mean? And the other point I was just gonna bring up on that Moab example is if you ever have the thought process of, here's something that we want, how do we go about getting this pushed through? Then you're probably already skating on the right. So it's important to honor the duty of legislative or administrative, understand your role and what it is that you're doing. But that's one thing I've appreciated is we haven't had that process where how do we get around our own
Rules.
code, or how do we do this so nobody knows, or how can we have a, you know, this isn't something I want to talk about in a public meeting. How do we, you know, and we haven't had that issue as a city, but that's one of the challenges that a lot of governing bodies do, is they realize, man, this is going to be difficult or ugly, or how do we get around our own process? So if you're having those thoughts, run for the state legislature. Sorry, I always end with that.
I thank Gary for a lot of our being on track too. So we appreciate your comments. And even in a lot of our meetings we've done, you'll say, look, be aware, you know, you may be able to do that, but be aware, here's some consequences. And that's very helpful.
Well, I'm spoiled up here, Morgan. You guys are one of the best councils. You really are. I see some of the other stuff that goes on in the state, and you would not even believe it. I had a call from one city that said, would you come up and talk to us, because everybody on the council hates the mayor and they will not listen to the mayor, and the mayor tries to govern the meeting and the council members overrule him. And they've got a rule up there that they can, with 2 individuals, they can take anything off the agenda. And so they take all the mayor's items off.
Don't give them ideas.
It's just great to deal with you guys.
Well, thank you, Gary, too.
So could the mayor also, just real quick, could the mayor also, I think I've seen Ray do this a time or two. If there's a lot of hubris going on out there in amongst the people, the mayor has the ability to just kind of call the whole meeting to order, doesn't he? I mean, all the people.
It's not only can he do it,
Yeah, he
has
should.
the obligation.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I experienced that.
yeah. I've seen, yeah,
Starts banging his gavel.
because I noticed Mayor Little a time or two.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
some folks got a little bit.
Well, he's gotten after us for discussion amongst ourselves
Yeah.
when we shouldn't
And
have
that's
been.
good to maintain too, because discussion amongst the council looks really bad out there,
Mhm.
where they're watching you guys whisper to each other and they're going, what are they talking about?
Yeah, is that
Are they
about
making
me?
a decision
Yeah.
without us?
Or texting.
Okay.
Denise, I have just one question. On the approval of the where'd it go? The warrants? Don't we need an nay on warrants?
We did.
We did.
Well, that's on the
Together.
consent agenda, and all those items can be voted on at one thing, and it's just a vote.
Great.
Yeah, it was minutes and warrants.
So the point Denise is making is all of our legislative decisions put under the consent agenda.
David just figured out a way of getting around.
Yeah.
We just barely had that discussion.
Gary wants to talk to David after.
Oh, wait. I brought it up about actually doing a motion and accepting the agenda as it was written. Or if there was any amendments that needed to be made, it could be done at the beginning of the week. So we need a motion to that to approve the agenda. And it's in our procedures.
Oh,
So if there are changes or an addition, like we don't have that very often, but it's a good process to accept the agenda. You know, so then it dictates the rest of the-
Number 3C.
Something that needed to be added.
we gotta do that now since we already blew past it.
No,
No, but at the next meeting.
It's useful. If it's useful.
We've never done that before. That's why we probably just blew past it.
Couldn't you make it part of the agenda?
It is.
Oh,
We blew past it.
because we didn't, yeah, for the last 10 years.
For the last 10 years, we've never done it.
Yeah, he does a good job.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, very good.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I think you can just
You
say the
don't even
magic
need
words.
that.
I can just do it.
Yep.
It's your power.
Adjourn.
You have that power.
You have that power.
That would have felt so much better with a gavel.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounded really authoritative.
See you, Ty.